SMT Nation, we are back. Nation, I made a video the other day. I think it was yesterday, actually. So it would have been Thursday the 7th in regards to the AT&T and US Cellular transaction, the deal. They've got an agreement, a transaction in place for AT&T to purchase spectrum from US Cellular. And at the time, I didn't know the exact details on which assets AT&T was securing and US Cellular was selling to them. So I have that information now, so I wanted to give you guys the update. I'll go ahead and link the Reuters article for you guys here. It'll be down in the description. Ways to support us can be found there as well. Please do like and share this video. Subscribe if you're new here, and turn on the bell notification icon to never miss an upload from the SMT. All right, folks, so the deal itself, just to kind of recap the news from yesterday, in terms of a transaction, valued at $1.018 billion. All right, very similar in value to what we saw Verizon pay in regards to their transaction with US Cellular. Verizon's transaction was a focus on low band and then two lower mid bands. It was PCS and AWS, so that's 1900 megahertz and 1700, 2100, and the low band at 700. It's the same stuff that AT&T is looking for here, 700 megahertz. Now, the one thing that's different is AT&T has secured the DoD spectrum that US Cellular was able to secure back in the auction most recently for, I think it's 20 megahertz of the 3.45 gigahertz. And to be honest with you guys, I'll shoot you straight. I'm okay with this transaction. I think, T-Mobile got a bulk majority of the spectrum. Verizon got a pretty big chunk too. And now AT&T's kind of coming in to clean up the mess. And by cleaning up the mess, I'm talking about the remainder of those low band licenses and then doing something with the DoD, the 3.45 gigahertz. Nobody else is building this stuff. Dish has some of those licenses as well from the auction, but they haven't built any of it. Verizon has no interest in 3.45. T-Mobile just sold theirs to secure more of the 2.5, their N41. AT&T's the only one, so I'm perfectly good with this deal, right? I actually think this deal makes a lot of sense. So when we caught news about, T-Mobile securing the deal with US Cellular and then Verizon, and then I think US Cellular had two more deals in place. This is the third. So there's a fourth one too, and we don't know who that is. That could be a holdings company. That could be a private equity. I don't know. I have no idea. I guess could be Dish. They don't have money, so I'm not sure how they would pay for it. But this is going to be a cash deal. This makes a lot of sense. AT&T is the only company that is building 3.45, right? That lower part of N77. Now, there is something we need to discuss, and that is the FCC has a very specific set of rules for the 3.45. And those rules are centered around the fact that no company can own more than 40 megahertz of this spectrum for the first 4 years after it was auctioned. Well, we're still in those 4 years, right? It's been, 2 years since it was auctioned, right? So they're technically not allowed to own it or operate it. What's going to end up happening, I think, is this is going to require an approval or an exemption from the FCC granted to AT&T. And to be honest with you guys, I like AT&T's chances to be granted that exemption, or whatever exception it would be called. And the reason is because AT&T has been very, very vocal about mid-band spectrum being freed up, right? They were able to secure some spectrum out of T-Mobile in Hawaii. They've been vocal about getting more mid-band auctioned, getting power levels turned up on certain frequencies. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's become glaringly apparent, right? They're going to get the 4.9 for FirstNet, right? Through the FCC. Things are going to probably go their way, right? And this is one of those times where it doesn't hurt the industry for AT&T to buy more spectrum and put it on air. It actually helps the industry. As long as they're willing to build it, I say allow them to have more than 40 megahertz. US Cellular is a dying company. They weren't going to be able to properly build this out or spend the money. Like you think about all those factors, AT&T's not getting over on anybody here. Usually when companies are trying to get over on someone, I'm a little bit more confrontational towards it, right? I push back, I offer more resistance. This is one of those things. Verizon has no interest in this stuff. T-Mobile has no interest. That leaves AT&T to kind of build out the 3.45. They're going to go from 40 megahertz to 60 in these U.S. cellular territories, which is going to make the connection a lot better for the folks there. They previously would not have really had access to this spectrum anyways, right? Now what's kind of interesting is what's going to happen to the C-band from U.S. Cellular. Now that we know what's happening to their DoD and all the other frequencies, that's kind of the last shoe to fall. And I really thought that was going to be Verizon who was going to go in on the C-band. Because if you look at the spectrum positions, you have T-Mobile focusing on N41. They do have a little bit of C-band in some places, but their emphasis is really N41, at least for now, right? No millimeter wave, nothing like that. Verizon is all C-band and millimeter wave and that sort of thing, and some CBRS in there, right? In the top 100 markets, it's pretty substantial. And now AT&T is a combo of C-band and DoD, right? So we kind of see their positions in mid-band. Verizon, the only wild card with millimeter wave, kind of doing something a little bit more substantial there. So tell me what you guys think of the transaction. How do you think this will all play out? Will the FCC grant the exception to AT&T? Will they permit it? Is it going to be an issue? We do have a new administration coming up here. And just as a reminder, the transactions for this, like AT&T and US Cellular, Verizon US Cellular, are contingent upon the approval of the bigger transaction between US Cellular and T-Mobile. Okay, so we'll just make sure we put that out there. Things fall apart with the T-Mobile deal. Nothing else goes through for any of the other companies. But I don't think it's going to be a problem, especially with this administration that is going to be ushered in. They are much more friendly, at least historically. We have precedents to believe that they'll approve it. All right, what do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section below. Now, the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard.